How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Aya? Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you too. We're so happy to be chatting with you for our first edition of Art Harari. Thanks for making time to speak with us.
Absolutely, anytime.
So we're huge fans, and we know that you're from Zimbabwe but based in New York. So we wanted to ask how your roots have contributed to your design practice. What is your design process? Maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah, everything I do stems from being an African child and stems from being a Zimbabwean. From even like my color choices, my color palettes, to the way that I sketch, it's always been embedded in my roots. And the reason why I've always wanted to do that is because it has sort of separated me apart from a lot of the other designers out there, especially when I was like building my company, building my brand, because there was always something that people noticed or something that I did, and they'd be like, well, where are you from? I mean, we know you live in New York and you've been in America, you're an American now, you've been here for so long, but where is this from? So I knew when I would get questions like that I was always on the right path. And I've always been, a big supporter of people embedding their culture and their roots and their heritage into their work.
Yeah, definitely. I think also when I came across your work in the Netflix show, you could definitely see that you had a different edge to the rest of everyone. And that's what made me so interested. And then when you saw you come on TV and say you were Zimbabwean, I was like, that's actually amazing because I could see there were all these really fun and colorful links. So what is it like being a Zimbabwean living in New York, and how is your work received over there?
Yeah, there's a little community of us in of Zimbabweans in New York, which is nice. And New York is one of those places where I think the city is only 13 miles long, but you can literally go 13 years without seeing someone because there's so many people there. But the nice thing is that, through sort of our networks, through social media, there's this really great community of Zimbabweans and Southern Africans that really just sort of like support each other or stick together. We have, WhatsApp chats, email chains and groups like that. So being a Zimbabwean in New York has been great for me. And I've gotten so much support, not even just from New York, but from people all over the country. I think everybody always wants to find a place where they belong, and I think one thing that's beautiful about Zimbabweans is that we're welcoming to all. Even if we have a community of Zimbabweans, it's like, oh, you're from Poland, come hang out, or you're from Scotland or Ghana, like you belong with us. So that's what I love about our community.
Definitely, that's so true. That no matter where you go around the world and you see Zimbabweans, it's just that instant friendliness. Straight away, I'm like, I know you're definitely from Zimbabwe. You're so
Absolutely.
friendly and happy. Are there any Zimbabwean designers or artists that you would want to collaborate with?
Yeah, so you know who I've been following? There's quite a few, but I've been following Renai Chapfika from House of Stone. I've been following her work for many, many years, and I had the opportunity of meeting her, I think in 2012 when I was there. I was doing some work. So she's someone that I love what she's doing. Like I've been eyeing her for the narrative, I've had conversations about that. So sort of working through that. And then there's another designer, and to be honest, it skipped my memory, but hopefully before we're done, I'm gonna remember who it is. I'm gonna tell you. But there's just so much talent, and I think for me, it's what sort of bothered me a little bit is just trying to sort of like bridge the gap in terms of like finding a way to get Zimbabweans, artists, designers, whatever work global, because I feel like other countries like South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria has sort of been able to do it very seamlessly, but I want us to be able to do that as well. So especially with my company, The Narrative, that's something that we work through and are trying to get more Zimbabweans to sort of come on board and showcase their work.
Yeah, that's amazing. Definitely. I think, yeah, what I love so much about your work as well, on top of that, is how you share such an importance of sustainability in fashion, and of course the vital topic of diversity and inclusion in the fashion industry, which maybe you could speak to everyone about, because I think, you know, and you also are a lecturer about that. So I think it's really important because we want as well a focus on education and sharing that with everyone. So we're really grateful for what you're doing. Maybe you could just give a few words about what you're up to.
Yeah, diversity and inclusivity has been a basis of my work since 2010, like everything that I've done. And I honestly thought that in the US, we were making headway in terms of wanting to just naturally be diverse and inclusivity, and it didn't have to be around marketing and promotional things. But when I went on the next Netflix show, Next in Fashion, and I sort of witnessed it happening on such a large scale, I'm like, if this is happening and how many million subscribers watch Netflix, I'm like, if this is happening and they actually like pushed this content through as something they wanted to present to the world, I was just shocked. And actually being in that show and at that time and realizing that, you know, fashion is still very European. It's very like Asian and Eurocentric. Fashion is still considered like high-end luxury. And if you're Black, if you're African, and if you're Black woman and African, it's like you're not counted. But you will be counted in a way where they'll look at your work and they'll steal it and take it as their own. But in terms of actually giving you, you know, the praise for your work, or at least wanting to collaborate with you, that's a big problem. And I really think with the pandemic, I think that really just when people were sort of like sitting at home and just like looking at the world from, you know, the inside out, outside in, I think we realized that it is a big problem across all industries, not just fashion or art, it's all industries. And, you know, and that diversity and inclusivity is very performative for a lot of companies. You know, a lot of companies will do it because it looks good on
Right.
their, you know, social responsibility. And or even fashion brands that will be like, oh, well, we had like a couple Black models or a couple African models. But then you look at the team and the team is, you know, all white, or it's not or not diverse at all. So there's a big problem. But what I loved about what sort not the pandemic, but sort of what I loved about what's going on is that I think we all sort of banded together and realized we need to make a change, and that we also just need to move forward without the support of these big luxury brands, because there's enough of us. You know, I think we're done being the people that just want to sit around and I mean, we've never put our hands out, but I think we just want to start doing it ourselves. And that's why I love Art Harare, because it's sort of saying we are here. You know, we don't need all these big corporate companies, but we are here and we are present and we want to be seen. I think that's the big thing. We all just want to be seen.
Yeah, I think from the pandemic, you just kind of think, you know, your dream is to then work for these huge companies because they have such good reputations and such good standards, and you kind of want to do that. But then through this, you actually sit back and think. And then, you know, like Richard and I came together and we're like, well, there actually is so much talent. And this is the time that we want to bring all these creatives from all around the world to share their stories and to let people know if they want to do something like you're doing, going independent and just doing it for your creativity and passion, that people can do that. And that's why we're so happy that we have someone like you to speak to, for people just to hear your story and to listen to everything amazing that you're doing.
And I also, to add to what you're saying, I think a big thing we all need to think about is that right now, since not that much is going on, like people are watching,
Yeah.
right? People are at home, they're watching, they're waiting, they want to see. So it's like, we need to start showing people like, oh, wow, this is all in Zim. Like, this is all coming out of Zim. Like people, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Nigeria is already on the map. South Africa is already on the map. You know, everybody's already like, come on, like, let's all do this. So I think what you guys are doing is the perfect time. And we are all watching for sure.
Well, we're just so happy that there's amazing people like you who support us and are happy to, you know, share your wisdom with so many people. So you have your company called The Narrative. So we were speaking about collaborations and everything. So how important is collaboration to you?
the narrative is collaboration. Like if I could just write a definition about what the narrative is, um, I've worked with so many different companies, worked with so many different brands and so many people. And what I've noticed is that through the reason why I was successful was because I was always like working with so many different people. Like I've never really done a project on my own. And if I have, it's not like what as good as I would want it to be. So when I started the narrative, I wanted to make sure that we were bringing in, first of all, like our team is amazing. Like our team is from all over. Everybody has different strengths, different talents. So that was a big thing. And also our team is Black and African. That's what it is. And that's what I wanted it to be, because I figured if we're speaking to wanting to highlight global work, not just from Africa, but from South America, Mexico, whatever, but focusing on like craftsmanship, artisans, generational, traditional skill work, I knew it needed to be from people that sort of understood that. So that was a big thing. And then just wanting to just bring brands from all over the world and sort of making the narrative the first landing spot for anybody that wanted to sort of sell their products and test their products in the US market. And we launched in 2017. So we're about 3 years old. And it's been the best 3 years because I've also learned a lot. I think part of being an entrepreneur is you always want to learn and, gain new skills and find out new things. So even from our artisans, like just understanding how like indigo dyeing, how to do that, and understanding like the tools people use, like our bowls, our Zimbabwean bowls, like just watching them, like with the hammer and like that's just so beautiful. So I've also been learning along this journey. So yeah, it's all about collaboration.
Yeah, that's amazing. But also there's kind of a sense of preservation of sort of culture and history, I guess, in that. Because when you think of like artisans today, like if I just, in London, you go around, everything just seems so manufactured, and there's sort of this dying concept of craftsmanship and someone learning this skill that's been taught to them by their parents, who were taught to them by their grandparents. So I think in what you're doing as well, there's a great sense of like preservation for these beautiful artistic talents that everyone has.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned indigo dyeing. Are there any other traditional ways of making fashion that you use or you like doing?
Yeah, so there's this brand that we have called Jiwava. They're actually from Uganda, and they use tree bark to make. So in their culture, they've been using tree bark to make clothing, bags, anything really. So she started a line where the back of the bag is cowhide, and then the inside is all tree bark. It is the most beautiful piece of wearable art I've ever seen. And she sent us a few to our store and we sold out because it's so unique,
Unique,
somebody
yeah.
can, yeah. And then also it's like 100% like compostable, like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't want the bag after a while, you can probably go and bury it in your backyard, and in a few months it will, be
Yeah,
part of
just
the
be
earth.
part of the garden. Yeah. No, I love
Yeah.
that. That's amazing. Like using also natural product. There's so much waste, I guess, as well in fashion industries, that it's just turning to these natural products and thinking of using that. I would never have thought you could use trees to then make these beautiful jackets. I'm going to look it up after and see
Yeah,
what it looks like.
definitely. Yeah,
So,
and even, in our culture, Zimbabwean culture, South African, Southern African culture, like using rubber tires for, art and toys and shoes and, fixing things. So that's like a big thing. Who would have thought that, walking into like a car lot with a bunch of old tires could turn into something so beautiful? So, I think it's more so what I love about artisans and creatives is that we're constantly looking, like, what can I use next? What is someone throwing out? What is their trash can be my treasure?
yeah, exactly. But I think as well that's something which is really special, I guess, about people from areas or countries that we're from as well. Like I remember you'd go to art class, or we'd have like a recyclable fashion show, and it was like, well, there aren't really that nice fabrics or anything, so we'll just go into the garden, the backyard, and see what we can do. And I just like made this whole dress out of recycled tire tubes, and everyone
Oh,
was
I
like, oh, where
love
did you get that? And I was
that.
like, well, I just got it from my backyard. And you're just made to think, I guess, in a very, it's really unique and very different. And I think when you have, in a way, lack of materials or accessibility, that's when you push boundaries, and
Absolutely.
so much creativity comes from that.
I
So
love that. Yeah.
so you're teaching at Thomas Jefferson University, we saw. And as we mentioned, we have a huge importance and focus on education and passing on that knowledge on to others. So we wanted to know, your inspirations for going into teaching and what that meant for you, making that step of, going into the education route.
Yeah, education, as you know, as a Zimbabwean, is a big thing in our families. Like our parents instill that, like even if you want to be an artist, like you still have to have a background in education. So both my mom and dad were professors at universities, and so I've always sort of been around that. But whenever I started the narrative, I realized how much of my role was not just being a retailer and an e-com, but more so being a mentor for a lot of the designers. So as much as I was learning, they were learning as well, just in terms of like marketing, positioning, advertising strategy, like you name it, we were teaching them. So when this opportunity came up to work at Thomas Jefferson University, I was like, if it's for me, it's for me. I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. I haven't had experience working professionally for a university, but I felt confident in the work that I had been doing for so long that I was like, I think I'm right for this job. And once I got it, I was like, this is so amazing. There's nothing more fulfilling than being able to shape the minds of our future. It's like when I'm gone, they're the ones that are going to be there making heavy decisions for the future of our lives. So I was like, if I can have a hand in that, please, like, God, let me do this. So I got it. I've now have like one semester under my belt. We still have a few more weeks left, but it's been an amazing process, and the journey is one I'm so happy to be on and so grateful for. So stay tuned.
That's amazing. And I guess it also goes back to what you were saying about, like, you believe in collaboration so much. And I think that it's always like five brains are better than one. And this idea of multiplying energies and everyone coming together and sharing and bouncing off ideas. So I guess it's kind of the same with teaching, right? When you have all these stories to tell and so much passion to share, when you go into a class, you then impart that knowledge onto so many people, and then you hope that they can then get excited about it and share that on to others. So
Absolutely.
what are the most important aspects of fashion that you teach to your students?
So this semester I've been more so focused on admin, which is program directing and just sort of looking at the program as a whole. So I'm only in a couple classes, but one of the biggest conversations that we've been having with our students is about sustainability. You know, the only way we can move forward in fashion is by sort of changing the way we manufacture production, changing the way we think, and changing the way that we want our consumers to consume.
Yeah.
And as we know, fashion is one of the largest polluting industries in the world. And it's like, to be a part of that, we can't do it anymore. Like, it has to change. So that's been a big conversation. And then sort of understanding that within sustainability, there's so many different layers. And also doing research on deciphering what makes a sustainable brand and what makes a brand a fraud, because we're actually having issues with large corporate companies like H&M and Zara that are doing sustainable lines, and it's like, how sustainable is that? What kind of data are you putting out? Are you using in-house data where you can cook up the numbers, or are you having like external people sort of come in and see what you're doing? So there's a big thing going on called greenwashing, where a lot of these corporate companies are saying the word sustainable just to make money and for sales, which is just goes beyond me, which is like the exact opposite of being ethical. Like,
Yeah.
but if you're a consumer and you don't know about it, like, I'm gonna, like, oh yeah, I bought this from H&M, you know, and it's like, I'm gonna think I'm doing something right. So you can't put the blame on the consumer. We have to start looking at these corporate companies. So that's a big conversation. And I'm really sort of challenging our students to sort of come up with, what is the terminology? What does it look like, you know, now? And what is it going to look like in 10 years? So it's a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of research and learning more about it. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's a difficult one because, as you say, you can't put that blame onto the consumers. But my sister studies sustainable fashion, so every week it's like this. She sends us her essays like, "Do not shop from this place. Do not do this. Do you know that this?" So, and there's so much that I didn't know, and if it wasn't for her, who would actually be updating me and keeping me in the loop, I probably would never have actually thought to question these brands who seem to be ethical, as you say, but actually are so far from that. So I think, as well, as much as we can also educate ourselves, it's important that people like you on a bigger scale also will point out who
Yeah.
is going down the more ethical route, who is not. So when we're conscious consumers, like the two and two can go hand in hand and hopefully tackle the sustainability problem as much as we all can.
Actually, send me that list, because I'm sure there's some on that I don't know.
I will tell her, because she studies at Parsons, and she's like, every time she's like always going on and on. She's really passionate about it. So now we're actually banned from shopping at certain places. But so I wanted to say, because fashion is kind of a form of art, I mean, I believe it is, and we wanted to say, like, do you link it back to a mode of storytelling when you are designing or creating?
Oh yeah, the only way to sort of stay on brand and to stay focused when you're designing is you have to have a story. Like, I've definitely tried designing the other way and it looks like a hot mess because there's no focus point. But that's also why I call the company The Narrative. You know, it's storytelling through design. You know, there always has to be a creative process. Where's the inspiration? What are you trying to convey to your customer? You know, like we always say, like, when you have something hanging in a store, obviously the designer's not going to be standing next to it and explaining to each customer what it is. So when it's hanging there, it needs to sort of tell its story on its own that the customer can get just like that. So yeah, that's a large part of designing. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the work has to be strong enough, carry all those ideas, all those messages just from being there. Yeah, that's true. You don't have someone who's going to walk you through it, explain their design and everything.
Yeah, I mean, and it has to carry the story to the point that the customer that buys it gets it, right? Takes it home, puts it on, and goes out. And then their friends are like, oh my God, where did you get that from? You know what I mean? Like, the story continues, you know, until you go back home and you put it away in your closet. So, yeah.
What is your relationship to art with your fashion?
Oh my gosh, art is a big thing. I have so many files of just like, okay, gotta like screenshot, save this, move this over. It's a big thing. I think even music can't survive without art. Fashion can't
Yeah.
survive without art. There has to be, even politics, you know, they have artists do their, you know, political boards, you know, like, art is everywhere. We live, eat, breathe it, whether or not we know it. So yeah, we're so grateful to artists every day. I mean, look at my head wrap. Look at this
I know,
beautiful
I
art,
love
you
your,
know?
it's
It's
amazing.
everywhere.
Are there any Zimbabwean artists that you're currently following?
Yes, there are. And maybe I should have looked at the names because
It's fine.
I have serious mommy brain and it's gone, but maybe with the designer I told you earlier, I'm gonna send you the artist, and maybe
Yes.
after this we can do a roll of like a credits thing of all the designers and artists that are in my head.
Yeah, that would be great. So we can share that with everyone. Awesome. Well, I love your head wrap. It's amazing.
Thank
Is
you
that
so
from the,
much.
is that from, did you make that?
Yeah, I do a lot of DIY, like a
Love
lot. So I literally went to the fabric store, you know, got the head wrap, cut it, and put it on, you know, so.
Well, you look amazing. You look
Thank
amazing.
you.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us. It's been great for us to know more about you, what you're doing, your personal projects, your entrepreneurial side, your ethical points of view. It's just been awesome chatting to you. So thank you so much for speaking to me.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for having me. What you are doing, when we first spoke and you told me about what you were doing, I was just so blown away and so inspired, because I think part of our conversation was we need more young people like you all. We need you, because sometimes the older you get, the more set in your ways you are. So we really look to you. And like I said, the world is waiting and watching, and they want to see what is coming out of Zimbabwe. We want household names out there. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, and we can't wait to see what you have in store.
Thank you. Well, we're all such big fans of you. And, like you said, teamwork. We wouldn't have been able to do this without people like you who were just amazing and so talented and helping us. And, it's all linked. So we're really grateful to have had your time.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.